Christian escapism, or escapism theology, is the misguided belief held by some Christians that we shouldn't be stuck here in this mess on earth. Instead, they think God should have had enough by now and call us home to heaven. Now, it may be understandable for those who have genuinely suffered, but many times it includes those who aren't really suffering. They just don't like living surrounded by sinners. It isn't new to 21st century America. Just about every century and every generation in every century has had its share of those who didn't want to deal with the real world. But it is unique to America in that we live in the best time and place to be a Christian. Yet some of us whine and moan about America's culture conflicts. Like babies, they cry, "The end is coming," and plea for the Lord to take them home. As a Christian, I'm ashamed and embarrassed by it. It makes us sound like the faithless generation that didn't get to enter the promised land because they refused to trust God. As we work our way through Deuteronomy, we've come to a section where God warned the faithful generation of Israelites that they must not forget Him when they enter the promised land, with all its blessings they didn't earn. They had to remember that they had been slaves in Egypt and that God had delivered them by His might and power. When the Lord your God brings you into the land He swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you, a land with large, flourishing cities you did not build, houses filled with all kinds of good things you did not provide, wells you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves you did not plant, then when you eat and are satisfied, be careful that you do not forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Deuteronomy 6, verses 10 through 12. The alien race of Egypt had done its best to destroy them, but by the care of Jehovah they had survived. When their children asked about their great laws and commandments, they were to be told how that by God's mighty hand, great and terrible signs and wonders were performed to humble the Egyptian nation. Deuteronomy 6, verses 20 through 22. Through God's actions, they were delivered from slavery and given their freedom. God's law called on them to celebrate their freedom and blessings. That same reminder applies to us today. As Americans, we live in the most prosperous and freest place of all times. The poorest among us live like kings in comparison to most of the world. More importantly, we Christians, now remember, America isn't a Christian nation and most Americans don't serve Christ. But those who do serve Him have the greatest blessing of all time, salvation in Jesus Christ. Which is why it's so embarrassing how some of those whine the most about how bad we've got it. Paul, the beloved apostle, suffered greatly for the kingdom, for the gospel, for you, far more than any of us. The only time he mentioned getting out of here to go home was a decision to trust God, knowing that remaining was better for God's people. Philippians 1, verses 21 through 24. We've been freed from the bondage of sin. So rather than seeking to escape, let's have faith and trust God enough to throw ourselves into the world, to be salt and light. Be like the Israelites in Deuteronomy who were preparing to go to war for God. Remember what God has done for you and boldly tell the world about Jesus. And boldly share Morning Minutes in the Bible with your friends. Until tomorrow, this is James McClenny hoping you have a great day.